All right. Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Audie. And of course, I am your host, Audie. Today is November 10th, 2020. It's sometime after 10 in the morning. And we are in for another episode of, something that we tend to kind of relate to. So, thank you everybody for continuing to support, continue to like, share, subscribe, and comment on the material on YouTube, or the Instagram, and wherever else, and also on Facebook as well. So, today's topic is something that I've been struggling with in terms of trying to determine how to address or go according and which angle to take on this particular topic. Been thinking about it over a month. So it's more also in terms of like trying to catch an eel barehanded. You stick your hand in the water and you think you got it, and when you bring your hand out of the water, it's gone. This is how slippery this topic tends to be, and this is why I've been finding it kind of difficult to talk about it. So, within the time of thinking about it, I heard an audiobook about the topic, and it kind of sparked some ideas as well. And also in terms of being on social media, you kind of see people kind of mentioning or hinting towards the same particular topic. So burnout is the topic for today. So I was always intrigued with how people tend to kind of run their cars and putting it on neutral and letting the tire kind of spin, and then letting the smoke come up, and eventually just boom, putting it on drive and just going off, and then leaving that little dark spot in the road. So with burnout in terms of the human aspect, how does it relate in terms of when we look at an object in terms of a vehicle? So what is burnout? I think in terms of what I've seen by most definitions, and also with listening to what others have to say and then reading materials, what some of the experts say about it, it tends to be some form of mental stress, or mental or physical stress from over exerting yourself in regards to what it is that you are doing. So in basic, if we all say we experience some form of stress, or we feel fatigue, or we feel as though we don't know what to do. It's like we are unmotivated, unfulfilled by what it is that we're doing. And this is why this topic is slippery, because we have so much identification with so many other things that burnout tend to kind of put all of these things underneath the same umbrella. So how is it that we tend to be so much more productive in terms of society, in terms of what is said based on the economic and the gross domestic product (GDP) of certain countries, but yet it seems as though the people are more unfulfilled, and they tend to be more burnt out per se than what their previous generations were. What is it? How is it that we got here? How do we identify it? Who goes through it the most? And I think in terms of who goes through it the most, that's the particular topic I'm going to look at in terms of the aspect of it. But for my personal experience in terms of working in education, I think educators tend to experience burnout a whole lot. We have those in the medical professional, social workers tend to experience it on a higher level, and I think every other profession does it. But in terms of those three professions, I think because they have to work with so many people, and then it's not also in terms of you getting the job done and the job is done. It's more so in terms of how is it that you got the job done, and what are the effects that it's going to have on the people that you did the job for. So that aspect of it is not like when the job is done, it's done. It's more so you are sitting there in terms of person providing the service, and then you have to think about how is it that I have to deal with the consequences of my actions or reactions or what I did on these people at the end of the day, and how do I measure their progress and their well-being at the end of this particular thing. So being a teacher for the year, I believe in terms of the burnout aspect, we tend to not realize that we are burnt out, because it's like if you are in an environment where everyone is doing the same thing, and then you hear people say it in their words, it's like, man, I'm so tired. It's like I can't wait for the weekend, I can't wait for the breaks, I can't wait for this. It's like I'm stressed out and all of these things. And then eventually, once you get in an environment like that, when you start, in terms of myself, when I started to come into it, I'm like, I don't feel this way. And then people was like, don't worry about that, you feel it eventually. It's like, that doesn't sound right. How is it that you are expecting me to get to this particular point where I'm feeling the same way as you, but then it's like, if I'm not, then I'm not considered normal. And this was the problem I was having. So in terms of being in there for a long period of time, in my first introductory phases, it's like I wasn't feeling the same way everybody else was feeling around me. And so it's like I didn't understand why is it that they were feeling that way. So how is it that because I'm not feeling the way everybody else is feeling, then something is wrong with me. And I was like, something is wrong with y'all because clearly you guys are feeling this way, but it's like you are not doing anything different about what it is that you're doing. So eventually, as the year went on, then I got to the point where I was feeling the way they was feeling, and then when I told one of my coworkers, it's like, yeah, it eventually happens, and then I was like, this is not how it's supposed to happen. It's like I'm supposed to be excited. I'm supposed to be feeling more fulfilled in terms of adding particular values to the lives of the people around me, and also enjoying what I'm doing. Why is it that I need to get to this point in order for me to be content with what I'm doing in a negative way? So I think in terms of the aspects that leads to the burnout is not in terms of what you do as a job per se, because in terms of education, I think most people when they go into education, I think, and this may not be true for all, that they want to go there and make a difference and impact the lives of the students and those around them by educating them in the material that they have at hand, which is what I wanted to do. But what you find yourself doing most of the time is not teaching. What you tend to find yourself doing is being more bombarded with clerical stuff that doesn't relate to teaching itself, but is important to the job. So whether it be contacting parents and making sure that their kids are well behaving, dealing with mental health and social conditions with the students in the classroom, dealing with administration and making sure that you deal with all of the paperwork that are in accordance to what your job description is. And then even if you probably have a hand on this, you find yourself at home doing the work that you need to be doing at work at home. And sometimes when you do that, it's like you end up spending more time at home doing work than it was be that you needed to spend time with yourself and your family, and in terms of actually getting the time that you need away from work. So it's like you take the work from work to take it home to continue it, and then you just don't know when to turn it off. And I think that's the major problem in terms of becoming burnout. It's like you find yourself in a position where you just don't know when to turn it off. And to turn it off means that you have lost an entire day and lost the ability to kind of do things that you feel as though are necessary for you to put yourself in a position to complete for the next day. And so you find yourself in the middle of the night waking up, it's like, oh my gosh, did I do the register? It's like in the age of remote learning in terms of distance learning and using online, you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night, it's like, did I take the register today? Did I send in that email that tell them that so-and-so is present? Or you find yourself in terms of, okay, well, how is it that I'm going to make sure that my technology works in the way that it needs to work? Or how is it that I'm going to find time for myself in terms of making sure that everything else for work is taken care of so that I don't run myself into a problem the next day when I'm actually doing what I need to do. And it's like eventually you kind of not know the difference between when I'm off and when I'm on. When is it that I need to take care of myself, or when is it I need to take care of work? And sometimes you just find yourself just going straight through the entire day, focus on just getting the work done and preparing for the next day, and then it leads to the next day, and you just do that for the entire week. And even on your weekends, you find yourself doing the same thing. And that's what kind of led to me realizing that I was burnt out. I don't think I realized it myself. It's like after I came off for the summer break, it's like during my undergrad and my grad experience, I never took a summer off. And it's like within that system of doing work all year round and not necessarily taking a break for yourself, you tend to not realize that you can necessarily lead to you burning out. I was more in concern of, making money for the summer where I needed to find a job. During the winter break, I also needed to find a job, make sure I had money to come and end so that I can take care of the bills for the next semester. So when I finally took a summer off last year and this year especially when I didn't do any work, all I did was pretty much just read and did something for myself. Then when I went back into work, it's like the first person who actually mentioned it was the one of the custodial staff who tend to clean the classroom. He came and he saw me. It's like, man, it's like whatever you did for the summer, please continue doing it, because last year you looked like a totally different person, but coming into this year, it's like you look like a whole new person. And I looked at him and I was like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, it looked like he was completely out of it last year. It's like you were a shell of yourself. And now this person I'm seeing is more so you look like the person who is excited to do what they want to do. And then I thought about it for a minute. I was like, why is that? Why is it that this guy is saying this thing this year and nobody actually told me this thing? But then people around you say, okay, well, it's a good thing that you got the rest for the summer because you're gonna need it, because this you're gonna have to it's gonna happen again once you go through the year. And it's like after realizing that, it's like how do you not realize that something is fundamentally wrong with what you are doing to yourself? And I think that's where the burnout leave, with the mental stress of getting the work done, not necessarily knowing the borders between when it's time to turn it off and when it's time to keep it on. Having the confusion between work and life and not having a counterbalance between those two. It's like coming into remote learning, there wasn't an off switch. It's pretty much you didn't have an off switch. It's like, first of all, when it first started, we teaching one day and then you had to call parents during your off days, and it still wasn't enough time for you to get those work accomplished. Now we went into the new year, the new school year, I would say, where you had to work every single day on class, every single session that you would teach in person. But on top of that, you need to call you have to find the time. You find the time to call the parents, to make sure that the work is done, make sure that you answer the emails for the kids, and also make sure that you take care of yourself. And on top of that, now you add the fact that on Sundays I need to update the grade book for Monday so that things can happen within administration for Monday. So now it's no longer where I'm working from Monday to Friday, 9 or 8, 7:45 or 7:30, which I usually would go in, until about 4:30, 5 o'clock. It was like I was working from 7:30 until about 7, 8 o'clock in the night. And on top of that, from doing that from Monday to Friday, now I have to go ahead and do so on Sunday again, working for at least 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday to make sure that things are in place for Monday. It's like you think that working those additional hours would put you in a position so that everything will be done. But it's like if I were doing it in a standard, day to day in terms of being in a classroom, yes, working those extra hours would have been suffice. But now you put me in a different situation where I need to do extra work, but it still feels as though that no work is being done. So how do you deal with that on an entire year basis in terms of you realizing that it's whatever you're doing is not enough, and not having enough kind of leads you into the self-doubt of your ability in terms of you being able to do what it is that you know how to do. And I think I got to that point where I was so angry with myself and I was so angry with everybody else around me, and I started to kind of blame myself for everything that went wrong, that I was like, this is not you. Like, what is it that's wrong with you? Why is it that you are blaming everybody around you and everybody is seeing this, but you're not seeing it? And then it's like, people, when they talk to you, it's like, you don't sound as excited no more. You don't sound passionate anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I can hear it in your voice, but I'm like, I'm okay. But then everybody else around you is saying that, no, you don't sound okay. What is wrong? And you don't realize that you've led into this point where you don't even notice the person that you are anymore. And so it's like, what do? You have three options. You either accept the situation that you are in, you either complain about the situation and do nothing, or you either leave the situation and take care of yourself at the end of it. And so what do you do at the end of the day? It's like, is it that your bills are are bigger than yourself, that you don't necessarily need to take care of yourself? And at the end of the day, what is it that you are striving for? Are you striving to kind of buy things so that you could make yourself feel better, or is it that you're trying to put yourself in a position so that you can enjoy and be passionate and be fulfilled with what is it that you're doing, and not necessarily put yourself in a position where you are burnt out and starting to feel angry, starting to resent, starting to hate what it is that you're doing, and blame yourself for the failures that you didn't inquire on yourself? And I got to that point where I was doing all of these things and I didn't realize what it was that was causing it. And it's like I had to take a step back and realize that, whoa, something needs to change. But what needed to change, I didn't know. So yeah, burnout, I think we all are experiencing it, no matter what it is, whether it's remote or whether it's in person or whatever it is in terms of what we did on a standard basis, we all are going to experience it. But then it's like we have those options in terms of three things. What is it that you're going to choose at the end of the day? So that's the decision. Yeah, I think that's the end of the episode. It's been a hard thing for me to actually, talk about, because it's like I've experienced it and I didn't really know how it was in terms of affecting me. I think coming from grad school and undergrad, in terms of doing everything I was doing and never really taking a break, it led to me not realizing I was burnt out in my first year, even though all the signs pointed towards the fact that I was burnt out. And instead of me taking the time to reflect and notice that I kind of went with the same mindset that I had in grad school. It's like, just keep punching it. Eventually, you're going to get over it and it's going to feel better. But it's like, do you really feel better at the end of it? And do you actually get to a point where you actually realize yourself, or is it that you're trying to run away from yourself and hiding those emotions and those cues that are presented on a daily basis that tell you that, okay, well, you need to check yourself, you take care of yourself, you get sick, you're like, okay, well, you need to take more medication so that you feel better for you to do the work. And so, at the end of it, we all have a decision to make. Burnout is a real thing. It's very slippery. Sometimes you don't realize it, even though you're doing it, but it is real. So that's the end of today's episode, and thank you all for continuing to support, continue to like, share, subscribe, comment, and continue to follow on those other social media platforms, and continue to come in and learn a few things. Even though sometimes I may not be coherent as possible in terms of what I say, but learn something from what it is in terms of my experience. So peace, love, and enjoyment. Deuces. I'm outie. Until the next one. See you guys.